Microsoft is delighted to be at PyCon. Hope you are enjoying the sessions. Scan the QR code to join the Microsoft developer community and receive regular updates on many open source topics, including Python. Microsoft is delighted to be at PyCon. Hope you are enjoying the sessions. Scan the QR code to join the Microsoft developer community and receive regular updates on many open source topics, including Python.
Chris, I think you might be mute.
Hi, welcome. Thank you very much. Welcome to PyCon APAC 2020. And today we're going to talk about the panel on the topic of applying Python language, technique, and mentality, Industry 4.0. Today we have three beautiful people here, and they are all subject matter experts in their specialty of their area. And I'm going to introduce them in a very short while. But before that, let me introduce the topic of Industry 4.0. Now, back in the 1750s, we have the Industry 1.0, where we will talk about steam, moving mechanical. Then we move into the 1870s, where we talk about conveyors, motors. And now in 2000, we talk about Industry 3.0, where we talk about computer. We talk about automation. And guess what? 20 years later, 2020, we talk about Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is all about application. It's all about data and how this is going to be used to automate even more interesting stuff in our industry, in our life, in our environment, starting all the way from cloud to data security, to data mining, to data management, to autonomous, right? And you can see cars are driving on its own. And we are talking about robots that can hug you, robots can speak to you. And this is where people like Dr. Carl, who is one of our speakers today, is going to share with us more about IoT, Internet of Things. And with Internet of Things, it's making all of our lives even better, faster, and more effective. So we're going to hear more about that. So are you ready for the Industry 4.0? I am ready. So with this, I would like to introduce you the speakers for today, or the people that is going to join me today. First of all is a technology leader and an entrepreneur, Dr. Carl. Dr. Carl is currently in Canada, and I'm so thankful, we are so thankful for him to dialing in to join us at his midnight right now. Everyone is sleeping right now in Canada, but he's so awake with us. Dr. Carl is the founder of a Canadian consulting and development firm, and that is called Imperative System Incorporated, focusing on prototype and POC development, proof of concept development for complex systems. And he holds a PhD in human system integration from MIT, Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics. Honestly speaking, when I read this profile, this was one of my dreams when I was young. So right now it's like, Dr. Carl, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Rishi completed his MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence laboratory. He is right now serving as a consultant, architect, and developer for global firms, startups, and universities. As the Director of Information Technology for an ambulance service, and as a researcher for military navigation system. So guys, if you're interested to know more about the military part, oh, I think he might need to kill you to tell you about what is in there. You know, he's going to be like James Bond, right? Okay. So Dr. Carl, let's give him a round of applause and let's welcome Dr. Carl. Dr. Carl, say hi to the audience. Say, right. Okay. Next on the list.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Next, we have on the list is Grisel. Grisel is a geologist, a researcher, and a developer, and she's an earth scientist and technology enthusiast at the Southeast Asia Carbonate Research Laboratory at Universiti Teknologi Petronas back in Malaysia. Yeah, her passion is transforming creative scientific ideas into user-friendly applications. People like her is what we need, making things easy for us to use. To help in problem solving, and currently working in developing subsurface modeling workflows for natural resources for exploration, mitigation, and adaptation. So with this, I would like to welcome Grisel to join us, and let's grill her and just squeeze all the juice from her brain on what she can actually help us as a Python community as well. Let's welcome Grisel. Grisel, welcome to join us. Yeah. And of course, if you're looking at the screen right now, there's a fourth guy there, good looking, young, and man, I can tell you when I read his passion, wow, he is great. He's an assistant professor right now at University of Southampton. He received his Bachelor of Engineering in EE, Electronic and Electrical, from Swinburne University of Technology, and recently completed his PhD. So that's where he is right now in Southampton University as an assistant professor, involved in teaching programming and digital electronics modules. Ivan is an avid science communicator and is involved in various research outreach programs within Malaysia and United Kingdom. Ivan's research interest centers around development of sensors. And guys, if you are in Malaysia right now and if you are Malaysians, well, this is a very interesting topic. He's creating and developing sensors for environmental and pollution monitoring. Man, this is something that we need, right? Because a few weeks ago, the whole Selangor ran out of water. As well as sustainable technologies to reduce such pollution. Man, he's our hero, our champ. Of course, he's the recipient of 2019 IET-Greenpeace Global Challenge Award. And guess what? If you want to know how the award looks like, go at him on Facebook. He has a picture with the award. So let's welcome Dr. Ivan. Ivan, thanks for joining us. All right. So with this, I would like to just share with you guys right now is that, you know, things are happening right now. Everything is happening because of the current pandemic. I remember 6-8 months ago, it's like I tried to tell people about digital transformation. I tell to share with people and pitch about how important companies need to move into digital. But IT is so reluctant to move because change is the biggest challenge in every organization. Every country is having that. But because of pandemic, whether you like it or not, you're forced to do it. You're forced to accept and embrace with the change of digital transformation. And this is very close to where you and I are in Python community, where we need to be the front. We are not just the nurses to be in the frontliners and the doctors front. We are in the frontliners, making and creating programs for people to use and to make Industry 4.0 even better. So with this, I would like to quickly jump to the first question to Dr. Carl. As an IoT expert and devices expert there, what is your biggest success story that you want to share with the audience today on something about IoT that you are doing and being a consultant right now in your research as well? Over to you, Dr. Carl.
Yeah, I think it's not a great success yet because it's something I'm currently working on, but one of my major projects right now is a contract with the government of Canada to develop IoT sensors for emergency vehicles and military vehicles for tracking inventory and assets on those vehicles. So it's a really interesting combination of wireless networking and radio, like RF transmissions and RFID tags and Bluetooth beacons and all that fun wireless stuff. And I guess it's a big accomplishment for me because it's a government contract. It was my first government contract, which is kind of a mark of success here. So I'm excited to be working on it, and hopefully it turns into something marketable.
Great. So in other words, it's like you can actually reduce, or in fact, you can actually eliminate the problem of an ambulance going out or being dispatched where they don't have enough, or they have forgot to top up certain medicines, or they forgot to top up certain things.
That's
right?
Definitely one of the applications.
RFID.
Yeah, the primary use of it, or the reason the government wants it, is so that when there's mass casualty incidents, like very large events, there are many different agencies that kind of collaborate together, and all of them send different emergency vehicles. And it's very hard for the dispatchers and for the commanders on the scene to know where they can get what they need from. So the system is designed to give them an interface where they can instantly see all of the different agencies and vehicles that have what they're looking for and request them and have them dispatched to that scene without having to go through the traditional chain of one dispatcher calling the dispatcher of another agency in this very long process. I worked as a paramedic on an ambulance for 5-6 years, so I was intimately familiar with the difficulties involved there, which is one of the reasons I find the project so interesting.
Wow, great. In fact, if let's say this is going, I mean, I can see that this is going to be a success project, definitely. From the sound of it, it is going to be implemented very soon. So we look forward to know more about it, and in fact, you can actually produce a white paper out of it and how you do it, and share with the community in future, right?
Yeah,
so
I'll come to PyCon 2021 and give a talk about it.
Definitely. Look forward to that. Great. So next one, I would like to jump on to Grisel, right? Grisel, currently you are doing a lot of research in Petronas, right? And we're talking about things that you're doing on the research, on the applications and stuff like that. And definitely Petronas is an oil and gas company, and the whole world knows about Petronas. And what is it that you are currently doing, and what are the challenges, especially right now with the oil and gas? As you know, per barrel is one of the lowest in history. So what's your take on this?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, actually, we are working in the Universiti Teknologi Petronas. So we are working with some of the data set are from Petronas. So that's why. So basically, our current research, we are a Southeast Asia Carbonate Research Laboratory. This is the only Southeast Asian laboratory studying the carbonates. We are basically working with exploration and with development, not just for oil and gas, but we're trying to subsequently moving toward to other areas like geopatrimony and also geoconservation. We know that now the importance of the sustainability is very important now for the future of the society, for the future of the next generation as well. So basically, what are our studies? We studied subsurface, we studied the rocks, and we study all what is regarding to the rocks, the resources, exploration, development. We use microscope images, rocks, until the satellite images. So our data is running from very small scale until large scale. So we are using different kind of software during studying all these small thin sections, microscope thin section, until the satellite images and also the seismic. So basically our study is the coral reefs. We studied the past coral reefs and also the modern coral reefs. And right now we are seeing that as a laboratory, we need to go through also the sustainability part, and we need to go next to what is the future of the exploration and also development in terms of oil and gas, but also preservation. So we are working with the open source. This is basically what we are now currently working into the digital transformation. Actually, we have started this since last year. I'm not a totally developer. I'm enthusiastic about what we are going to see in the future. I'm very optimistic about the future as well. But just in reference of what we can see, we can observe from our laboratory is the study of the coral reefs. We have seen that there are more than 100 million people worldwide that depend on the reef, also the food, the jobs, the coastal defense, etc. So coral reefs provide a very important ecosystem for life underwater, protect coastal areas, reducing the power of waves hitting the coast, etc. So we are also working with water environment, but also working with the subsurface. And we are trying to use all the sources, like in this case, all the software and the open source data that we can get to improve our research and to make a publication, but also make applications that are practical for the society. Mm-hmm.
So, Grisel, the thing is that from Dr. Carl, I know the way he mentioned about putting the devices together for the ambulance. It is already like more like putting together with the programming behind support and join up everything. What about in Petronas right now, if you don't mind sharing? Is it like an internal in-house programming, or you actually outsource it to outside third party?
Yeah, we are basically a research lab that are depending on our results. We work in collaboration. We can work, but we are not working basically with Petronas as well. So we are independent research lab, but we depend on in terms of the data set, and we need to share our labs, our result and our publication as well. Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. So thanks for sharing. In fact, to the Python community, you can see how Grisel is sharing in Petronas is that they are not just looking at researching what type of rocks in the seabed and stuff like that, right? They're also looking into the sustainability of the corals. Because when the corals die off, the fish will die because the fish won't come. Because corals are supposed to be the places where the fish is swimming and hiding and play with, right? You all watch Finding Nemo, right? So the thing is, we also need to talk about sustainability in a short while, right? So that is very, very important. Yeah. Thanks, Grisel, for the sharing. All right, Dr. Ivan. I have this beautiful question for you. Is like, what do you do to earn that award? Man, that is not simple award that you earn, which is actually the 2019 IET-Greenpeace Global Challenge Award. I mean, what takes it? Because I'm very sure in the Python community right now, there are a lot of people like you who wanted that award as well. Yeah. So do you have any tips? Okay, come on.
I see. Okay, so for that award, actually, we didn't do any programming related solution, but we did use Python and the back end for like data processing and stuff. But what we actually did was I collaborated with my friends from University of Malaysia and also UTP as well, Grisel, Universiti Teknologi Petronas. So we came up with this new way of packaging dried condiments and beans and things like that, in such a way that you do not need disposable plastic. So it's our contribution to actually reduce plastic waste. So what we did was we did a lot of tests. We bought in supplies. We bought in these powders, some of them locally, some of them from China. We tried to aim for organic sources, right? So we end up choosing carrageenan, which is an extract derived from seaweed, actually. And basically, it's kind of like a small-scale chemistry kind of experiment, where we did lots of tensile testing to get the right strength, get everything correct. And we have to make sure that the material that we came up with is actually biodegradable. So I would say it's kind of like a little bit away from my work. Yes, I deal mainly with electronics, I deal mainly with programming and sensors. But sometimes when you're trying to solve an environmental issue, when you want to try to solve some sustainable issue, you have to think out of the box. You can't just stay within the electronics, IoT solutions. That's what I think. And the reason I think that we won that award from UK is that the solution is so simple. It's right in front of you, and it's something that we got the award, came back to Malaysia, and instantly, we could start working on it, and it's very marketable, right? And if we were to come up with a solution that is very high tech, you might take a bit more time before the solution could be marketed and before you can actually solve the problem, you see. So that's what I do. But on the flip side, I feel like Python actually did help in this project, even though it's not very related to electronics, because we collect a lot of data when doing the experiments. So Python actually helps. Well, it's Python for me is just like a calculator. You see, is people use Excel. When they deal with data, I prefer to use Python because I like to automate stuff.
Great.
Yeah, so
basically, from your sharing is that to the Python community right now is that to whoever that is listening to this right now, there's two lessons I learned from Dr. Ivan. Number one, we do not really need to look for complicated solutions to actually win an award. Sometimes the answer is just as basic as right in front of us. And we just need to execute it flawlessly and make it more innovative. And the second thing is that, data is very useful. Data is the new currency in the world right now. With data, so long we know how to fine-tune it, analyze it, you can make a lot of data advantage to us. And that's what it's all about, right? Is that correct, Dr. Ivan? Right.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, great. So with this, I will just thank all of you for your sharing on some of your background and what you're doing right now, currently doing right now. So what I just want to go right now is to go into a little bit more about Industry 4.0. Now, Industry 4.0 is huge. It's a lot of things. We talk about cloud, we talk about data, we talk about autonomous, we talk about IoT, 3D printing, cyber security because of a lot of data, a lot of stuff that we can talk about here. But I just want to narrow down to a few things where the three experts here can actually share and benefit us. And you never know, right? It might open up more opportunity for people in this forum right now to actually work on. And next year, you can share your success story. So I would like to actually move on to the first one, which is to Dr. Carl, is that currently we can see that pandemic has occurred and affected the whole entire world. Earth is all affected. And in such a short time, every organization is looking for devices. And honestly speaking, the demand shoot up straight, but the supply is not really there to support. Take, for example, we don't even need to go far. We just take, for example, a thermometer, a sensor thermometer, right? It's like every organization, every shopping malls need to install a thermometer at the airport, for example. So what is your take on this, on being an IoT expert, right? How can this be expedited and how can this be quickened so that it can support the supply and the demand? Because this is definitely something that we can actually start off with our topic today.
It is. I think there are really two issues there. One is a shortage of the human resources, the developers to work on those systems, and the other being the hardware itself. Particularly in North America, the vast majority of our electronics are manufactured in Asia, and the supply chains to receive those here have been very heavily disrupted, particularly in the earlier days of COVID. It's becoming a bit better now. But trying to get supplies, like if we ordered circuit boards that were printed in China, trying to get them here would be, months sometimes, or just wouldn't happen at all. That has been a major disruption to development in that field. As to how you deal with that, I think there will be quite a push to bring at least some manufacturing capability back to North America. To be able to support that in the case that the global supply chain fails again for whatever reason. But also I think that there might be some changes to this kind of just-in-time supply chain that we have now, and there might be some more warehousing and keeping items in stock at higher quantities than they have been over the past decade. In terms of the human resources part of things, that is going to get better. Well, I don't know. There will definitely be more developers who can work on these things. Because particularly, and this is one of the best things about Python, in my opinion, is that it really does enable more people to get involved in the field. Software like Python and electronics manufacturers like Adafruit or Arduino that make these really easy to use pieces of technology are really helping to drive a new generation of a lot more people getting into this field. So that will improve over time, but at the same time, the demand is just going to keep increasing at a very high rate. And so I'm not sure that the supply will ever catch up to the demand at the rate that it's growing now. So for anyone who's interested in it, it's a great field to get a job. You'll always have employment.
That's great. That's great. So this is actually a piece of good news to all of us. Like I mentioned, like every dark clouds have a silver lining. So I mean, we can't stop the pandemic from growing, but definitely we can actually look at what is the opportunity to add to actually ride on this flow. So what Dr. Carl has shared with us is two things. Number one is the shortage of circuit boards and the shortage of devices. But the other one is the shortage of human resources as well. So to the community, this is definitely good news. Look into things that you can actually create and program. And definitely every industry needs you. So you are the next Iron Man, Avengers, heroes to all of us. So please, we need your help. And if your friends is good in programming, or you yourself is good in programming, please hook up to the right companies. I'm sure they'll hire you straight away. And definitely, yeah, I think Dr. Carl, I think this is something that is going to be ongoing for the next 1 or 2 years until the vaccine is going to be produced, right?
Part of it, I think. Yeah, we're definitely starting to catch up. The shipping has gotten back to almost normal. So that part is definitely improved, but yeah, everything's.
Oh, we still need the human to do the programming.
Yeah. And
true.
We're in a time now. We're fortunate that like when this pandemic happens, we have the capability of doing what we're doing right now. But had this happened 10 years ago, all these companies that are now working remote, most of that wouldn't have been possible, and I think the impacts would have been much more severe. So we're kind of getting away with it a little better than we would have a while back, which is mostly due to a lot of it's due to this Industry 4.0 and all these new technologies. So we're fortunate in that sense.
Yeah. So I guess we will need a lot of programmers helping us out on doing things faster, collecting data faster, and expedite the vaccines as well, because everything is also from data, because the scientists need data to understand the virus easier and understand the virus faster so that they can come up with a solution as well. So this is also something that we need as well. So thanks for that thought, right? And also as a follow-up question, and with a new norm of, I think, all the workforce, right, Dr. Carl, is that all of us are working from home, okay, including myself. With this new norm working from home, I guess this is going to help out, right? As programmers, we can work in anywhere, any place. So definitely, I think this would definitely help us out, right, as well. We don't have to go to office to work. What's your thought on this, right?
Yes, I think it really does open up the opportunities, and in particular, so as self-employed, running your own business, I've always been able to do that. I've always worked from home because my clients are all over the world. There is no office to go to. So that's always been an opportunity. But now I think a lot of the larger corporations are starting to realize that this can actually be a big cost savings for them, that their employees can be happier this way, and it'll start to become a much more normal thing to do. One of the largest company in Canada, called Shopify, which I'm sure a lot of people here have heard of, Canadian startup in the city that I live in Ottawa. They recently, a couple months ago, stated that as of now, by default, everyone will continue to work from home for the indefinite future, regardless of what happens with COVID. So a huge shift there, which I think you'll see come through in a lot of other companies as well. So a lot of opportunities in the corporate world beyond just your self-employment. But at the same time, I think it's kind of a risky thing, right? As programmers, a lot of us spend most of our time sitting in front of our computers, and sometimes there isn't always a lot of socializing involved in our work. And being in an office space, or at least with other people around, you get at least some of that community and socialization that you don't get working from home, regardless of how many video calls you're on. And so that I definitely see as a risk that, particularly in like the enjoyment of your work and the mental health factor of it, that we have to be aware of.
Yeah, I did mention. I mean, that's a very good point, right? So most of us are working from home, and most of us do not really have a real good setup, ergonomics home office. So some of us are working from our kitchen chair, some of us are working on our stools and stuff like that, right? So working long hours may actually get you into trouble as well. But look for it and plan properly, making sure that your high adjustable desk, your seats are adjustable, proper lightings and stuff like that. So to all the programmers, do take care of your health as well, because opportunity is there. But if your health is not there to make the opportunity come true, it doesn't make any opportunity happen in reality as well, right? So that's a very good point and good sharing from Dr. Carl. Thanks for that. Right? And let us move on to Grisel, right? Grisel, can you share with us more about when you introduce new research and when you introduce new application and research and things like that, right? And I think the most important thing is when you introduce these changes to people will tend to like, wow, change again. Being as a researcher and being as someone to develop new stuff for your university and stuff, what is your key takeaway on introducing a change, and how do you help people to manage it? What's your thought on this?
Okay. If I think in general, the geoscience has been basically manually. Most of the task has been manually done, especially the part of the field work where we need to go to the field, we need to take samples, and we need to make the maps. But what I can see now is that we are now trying to fasten these kind of applications, trying to use more open source data and also open source software like Python, for example. And then what we are seeing now in general is like we have seen two things that during the last 6 months I have observed is that we are using more maps. That in the case of that, we are trying to use more data visualization, because we have done a lot of research and we need to do many kind of visualization. So in this case, we are seeing that using different kind of, in this case, we use Python to try to visualize our result. We can get more people involved on that. It's like the case of the maps from the COVID, for example, from the pandemic. So we can observe that many people can be reached if we use our result plotted, for example, in a map. So the same case with our coral studies, with our modeling studies, we can see that there is more approach into the part of the maps, because usually humans are very visual creature, right? So they tend to see the things. So what we are seeing now in general is that we as a researcher trying to open our data to the society, trying to show to the society in terms of visualize in the better way. In this case, using Python, using different kind of applications, for example. And the second part is the communication part. So I think that the communicate in the best way our result to the society is also very important. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful sharing. So the key takeaway that I get from your sharing is people are more easy to change and accept the change or accept something new from visual. And then from the visual, then you share the communication on the results there, right? So you use Python to also do research on the corals. And the most important thing is, do you do simulation as well for things that you are looking at, like the drills and things like that, offshore? Do you do simulation using Python?
Yes, actually we have several softwares that are commercial softwares that use software development kits where the environment is Python. For example, in the case of GIS, what is actually geographical system information, we use many information from satellite images and also geographical information. So as a geoscientist, we use a lot of geographical information, and the main idea is to visualize in a better way. So we use Python as a very important tool now to communicate all these results as well. Mm-hmm. It's not just only the papers, but also now I think science is very important now in terms of that we need to find a way to communicate in the best way to the society. We have seen a lot of misinformation during the last month, so I think that it's important for the scientists also now, for the researchers, to try to show this result in a better way, communicate in a better and easy way to the society.
Yeah, in the other sharing about the forum, which is something like this, sharing, it's on the Raspberry Pi on the topic, right? So one of the speakers was actually sharing, and he's from Philippines. He was talking about how he mount the camera on every fishing boats to see what are the fish that they actually pull out from the fishing nets and stuff like that, so they actually can see how many sharks and turtles and stuff like that. So it was a good sharing, and I think it's quite related to what you're doing as well, which is using pictures, GPS and stuff like that, right? Great. And you're also looking into the sustainability of corals. Do you mind sharing with us, like, how do you use Python and data mining and data to actually do this sustainability part?
Sure. We use the study for the corals from the modern corals to try to understand the reservoir distribution in subsurface. So what we did is to study many corals in Southeast Asia to try to analyze using the satellite images, and we check into the geometry of every coral. So we can see is the geometry, the shape, the fish's distribution, that is actually the type of rock that we can see in the coral. And we can find any kind of physical rule that has been developed this kind of coral. And we try to use it as an analog for subsurface models. That it means these subsurface models has millions of years. So what we do is try to correlate both and to try to understand how these corals has been formed just in the modern, but also in the past. So we have seen thousands, millions of years. Usually these corals now are host of different oil and gas or other minerals as well.
Wow, thank you so much for doing what you're doing, because you are really preserving our corals, so that we continue to have marine fishes, getting a place to stay as well. Thank you so much, Grisel, for doing that. All right, let's move on. Same thing to do with environment, and I'm going to go into Dr. Ivan, right? Dr. Ivan, we are all Malaysians, you are Malaysian, I'm Malaysian. And for those of you who are dialing in and joining us in Malaysia, you know that 3 weeks ago, all of us went through at least 2 to 3 days without water supply. And some of us didn't even get to bathe or shower. And this is all routed back to a river was polluted, and it caused the whole entire function of the pumps and everything was shut down just to clean everything up. What is your take in this? Because as far as you are doing sensors and environmental and pollution sensors, what can we do better to stop this from happening in future? I mean, I really want my showers every day. So what can we do to this?
Well, definitely, the best thing that could happen is to have sensors installed across rivers, across factories, to monitor what are their discharge, right? But we realized that very quickly that this is not very possible. It's actually quite hard. It's something quite hard to do. So what I'm trying to do right now is trying to come up with simpler sensor designs. So we're trying to promote civilian science, trying to get the designs to be as simple as possible, such that anyone who's interested to build electronics, instead of just building some random robots and stuff like that, they could actually build their own sensor and start their own monitoring systems. So the ultimate goal is to install these sensors, in rivers, and to monitor, discharge, monitor heavy metal ions, monitor the oxygen level and things like that. But currently, what we did was we collaborated. So myself and a few teams, we collaborated with a company called Seed Studio. It's from China. So we got their sensor monitoring kit. We assemble them, and then we come up with an education plan, basically, and we send them off to kids. And we teach kids essentially how to build their small little app to monitor systems, and then send the data over to our web server right? So to collect. So at this stage, it's kind of like a prototype. So the sensor data that we collect might be correct, might not be correct, but we're still trying to gauge how this would work. So that's one thing that we're doing. And the other thing that we are actually working on is something I call Project Kappa. So Project Kappa is essentially an augmented reality game. So we're trying to get kids to play around with this game so that they can empathize more with the environment. So what we did is essentially they built the sensor, we linked the sensor data to an augmented reality application, and then instead of displaying data in terms of charts, right, in terms of like graphical charts and things like that, these are kids you're talking about. So we gave them a pet. So they have a virtual pet they have to take care of. And then if the pet falls sick, they have to, they know actually, the sensor is detecting pollutants. So what they did is they could send medication to the pet. But once they press, send medication, actually it's logged into our server. So we know, okay, someone's reporting pollutant, high level pollutants in this area. So of course, at this point, the key point that we are trying to bring towards is education and awareness. The data might not be viable to be used as a report, but it can be used as an early indication,
That's
to
right.
localize pollution, and pollutions. So right now we have almost about 50 kits, 50 sensor kit spread across Malaysia. And how we do that is we partner up with tuition centers. It's quite an unconventional approach. So we gave them this kit. So in return for the kids learning about electronics, we, of course, with their consent, we are actually gathering data across these few areas. We still have not penetrated northern part yet. So sorry, Penang is not in yet. We've got East Malaysia, West Malaysia, KL, Selangor. So most of them is still heavily populated around the Selangor area, our census. And we've got a few in Kuching, Sarawak. Not so much on Sabah yet, but we're trying to find partners there. So if any one of you around here, audiences, are running sort of education for kids, Python for kids, things like that, feel free to connect with me after this. Yeah, so that's one way we are actually trying to fight the pollution. But on the other side, on the more serious sense, my research is actually going towards development of nanocrystalline graphene sensors. So what we realize is nanocrystalline graphene is actually quite sensitive to air pollution. So not so much, Christopher, on water pollutants, but we're working on air pollution. So the idea is that it requires a lot less energy to operate the sensor. So we're trying to add this onto the whole array of commercially available sensors already. So what happened is that we can then use all these sensors and form arrays that could be used for ML application or machine learning application to better predict air pollution before air pollution could even happen. So that's one way this would work. Now, the other project that I was doing previously was actually using something called nanocrystals. So you have graphitic nanocrystals, and you can use these graphitic nanocrystals as a way to actually check for the presence of ions in water. So what we did was we are using nanocrystals to detect lead ion, right? And lead ion, if discharged into the environment, is actually a harmful pollutant to the rivers in Malaysia, basically. So that's basically, an idea of what we're doing right now.
There's a lot to digest right now. So the thing is, just now you did mention about you wanted to have a lot of sensors, you want to do a lot of sensors at the rivers and stuff like that. And what is your challenge of not having that happen then? I mean, if every rivers have a sensor, we could have we could have prevented what happened to us in two incidents, which is the Kim River, the back in Johor, and also the most recent in Selangor, which is another state that had another pollution that caused millions of people without water supply and caused millions of ringgit being revenue of being lost. So we're talking about millions here. We're not talking about a few hundreds here. So the impact is huge. What was your challenge of not able to have that? Is it because the government is not supporting, or is it because there's no law, or what? What is it?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, the government is actually monitoring this already. So through the Department of Environment, so they have their own monitoring systems. But the challenges is, again, those monitoring systems, to make it really good, you need to buy expensive sensors. So cost is actually one thing that we're looking at. So the sensors that I'm trying to build are cheaper sensors. So sure, it cannot tell you the pollutants down to the ppb levels or part per billion, part per million levels, but if you have enough of these sensors as a threshold, you can actually predict when there's a pollution happen, or even before the pollution is about to happen. It acts as an early warning system. So yeah, again, back to your question, yes, there is already like monitoring systems that are here, but the cost is one of the challenge. Yeah, and usually these are government-related projects, and of course, with government-related project, you would need approvals. There's a lot of levels that you need to go through, right, before the project is actually implemented.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I'm very sure that it all started out with things that are expensive. Like right now, we talk about sensors are expensive, but eventually over the years, when people like you in this call in this forum started to have all ideas to make sensors become more affordable. I didn't say cheap, but more affordable. Right? So things will happen. So I believe in 1 or 2 years' time, sensors will become more affordable. We could have done better. We could have avoided a lot of things. And which is where Dr. Carl is doing this every single day of his life, I believe. He's creating more devices, which is going to help out more effectiveness of his ambulance. He's going to make sure his ambulance is all RFID, GPS track, making sure that every single parts in the ambulance is all ready to go for the next saving of life saving. So I think this is what all of us are doing to make life easier and to improve life. So this is Industry 4.0, I believe, that I've heard from three of you just now. And of course, we talk about sustainability. We cannot just use resources on Earth, because Mother Nature will run out of resources one day. And that's where Grisel needs to come in as well, to make sure that sustainability is there. It's like a moonshot goal for us, right? It is like a goal that we need to make sure that environmental is being saved. Now, for those of you who are listening to us right now, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to pop in and put in the question in the chat as well, because I'm going to read out your questions and let me know who you want to ask as well, okay? So while you guys are putting in the questions, before I wrap up in the next 15 minutes, I just want to ask you guys on, this is open to three of you. It's like, it's like in Industry 4.0, everything is about data. It's a huge opportunity for everything, right? It's a huge opportunity to every single thing. We're talking about IoT, machine learning, autonomous, cloud, financial technology, simulation, all kinds of things. We used to create a prototype that takes, I think Dr. Carl, you agree with me, to create a prototype, it takes you sometimes takes you 1 or 2 years to create a prototype, right? But with IoT and with Industry 4.0, I think we can simulate the prototype out, a POC, a proof of concept within shorten it to a few months. And I'm speaking on experience as well, because when I used to design a laptop, it took me almost 2 to 3 years to come up with a prototype and stuff like that. But today we can simulate a laptop design in just a mere less than a year. So that's how things are moving so fast. And that's why Intel continue to launch new processors every 8 months to 10 months. That's how fast things are. Remember last time we talked about 4th gen to 5th gen takes about 2 years. Now we're talking about 11th gen is being launched. So there we go. All of us are new gens coming up. Now, everything is all about understanding data. All of this is supported by data. To quicken out things is data. And you also know that a lot of people is hacking us because of data as well. ransomware and stuff like that. What is your take on this, on protecting the most important thing? Because data is a new currency. To three of you, anyone want to share? Data security. How can we do or do things differently to protect this? Anyone want to take this up?
Yeah, I can comment on this a bit. So I think it depends how you define security. There's two different parts of it. One being, just protecting your corporation's security, right? Your data warehouse and making sure that your proprietary data is safe and so on, your customers' data is safe. And then the other being your personal data, which is also a very valuable currency to a lot of companies, right? And one of the downsides, I guess, or one of the problematic issues with Industry 4.0 and IoT is just how invasive a lot of it can be, right? And you look at, one of the first mass-produced IoT things was, at least here in North America, was Amazon, the marketplace company, not the web services, released the one-push buttons to order things. So it's like a little device you could stick on something and you push the button and it shows up at your door, which is a really cool IoT design, right? Like that's a really interesting use of the technology. But at the same time, is that good for you? Like, is that something you should have in your house, especially if you have tendencies to shop a lot more than you should? And, that's a pretty simple example, but you see that kind of issue coming up in a lot of these devices that are really in your face and really in that what used to be a personal space. So from my perspective, at least, the personal side of data security is a much higher risk area right now, because everybody wants to know everything about you, and it's really hard to protect.
Talk about
that.
Facebook, right? It's like Facebook knows everything about you, and you're willingly giving them all the data, right, from your face to everything.
Yeah, and a lot of the services that companies offer that are marketed as something that's security related or good for you is actually collecting a lot of data on you, and everything you use Google Maps to move around, and all of your motion is now tracked, and all the places you've visited are now logged. And I think another issue is that even if there's good intention for a lot of services, it also opens up risk to malicious activity. So again, Google, for example, they have the Google VPN, which on a lot of phones you can have it so that all internet connection goes through a VPN managed by Google, which protects you, in theory, from public hotspots and attacks there. But at the same time, if you're using a device where all of the certificates are managed by Google and all the traffic is going through Google's servers, in theory, somebody who has access to that can trust Google's own certificate and then decrypt all of the TLS encrypted traffic that you're sending to any website, which breaks all of, the whole HTTPS thing is now no longer useful if that happens. And I'm not saying they do or that they're trying to, but like it's a new risk that you have to take into account. And so a lot of these services have those kinds of potential issues with them. And that's another big thing that we're dealing with when we get into like this COVID contact tracing apps, another big thing that governments are pushing all over the world. And how do you protect that data, right? Now you're not selling it, or you're not supposed to be selling it, but you're still collecting, not only where someone has been, but who they're interacting with, and all this really sensitive information about someone's life. It's a really difficult field that this massive growth in demand for data it's causing this really tough problem.
Yeah, that's very true, because every single company, every single country is a requirement. It's actually a law right now in most of the country that everywhere you go, you have to scan in, scan out, and who you're with and stuff like that. So actually, those are really, really information that, if you misuse it or fall into wrong hands, then it will be causing us a lot of wrong. So anyone want to chip in on top of Dr. Carl on the data security part? Yeah, I was actually looking at, like currently, just very simple, our laptops, right? We do have antivirus in our laptops, and we're talking about antivirus like Norton Antivirus, McAfee, AVG and stuff like that, where it needs to be downloaded. You need to continue to upgrade or update the definition so that you can protect your laptop from being hacked by virus and infected by virus and things like that, right? So if you do not update the database, then the database won't get the latest database to scan or to protect your laptop, right? So this is what we call the traditional kind of antivirus. And so moving forward, I'm not sure. Do you think that we can create something like a next generation of antivirus where you do not need to update the definition, but you can have like a bouncer? I like to use this analogy. It's like you go to a pub or you go to a discotheque and you have this bouncer standing at the main door, making sure that you are above 18 before you're allowed to go in. And this bouncer will look at you and judge you. Are you 18? If not, can I show some identification? Yeah, these kind of things. Can we create like a bouncer to our laptop where it can scan for irregular activities or suspicious activities? Something like an AI antivirus.
Yep. Yep. I mean, what you're saying actually is doable. In fact, I'm sure a lot of these security companies, they are actually going into that as well. Tracking. In fact, let's backtrack a bit. Not just in terms of virus, in terms of say credit card transaction, right? There are ML algorithms running in the background, detecting anomalies. So we call that the anomaly detection algorithms. So it'll flag it up. So most of the time, it'll flag it up and let a human know, and then the judgment is done by human. But as AI is increasing in terms of uptake, I'm pretty sure like in the future, antiviruses would definitely have AI built into it. So instead of searching through a database, it may have been trained to detect virus patterns, certain patterns. But
Suspicious patterns.
Suspicious patterns and abnormal behaviors and stuff like that. But with that said, also it opens up another kind of worms, because then with AI, you could use AI to design a virus that is that could not be detected by the antivirus, because when you're training the AI, there are some inherent biases in the data that you're using. So if a programmer went completely different routes or to do something that's completely out of the box, it might be able to fool the AI. Yeah. Or on the other hand, programs that are supposed to be helpful, right, doing something that is not normally seen, could be tracked as a virus, even though it might not be a virus. Yeah. So those are sort of like challenges that we are going through, and they would need to solve before we can go full. We can implement it fully into the whole ecosystem.
Great. Now, really hope that with these opportunities, I look at all these challenges as opportunities, right? Yes, we definitely need this. We definitely need something like a more AI antivirus to help us protect our data, to help us protect ourselves from everything. So definitely these are opportunities. So to all the Python community out there, we look forward to you and the brainchild of how you can actually develop better stuff for us so that you can actually make our lives safer, right? Yes, I know Dr. Ivan is saying that, yes, even though you have that, but there's still some people who will try to do something to fool the AI. Well, honestly speaking, this is a never-ending debate, right? So, sorry? You're on mute, Dr. Ivan. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a never-ending war. So you at one point, better cybersecurity. At the other point, people are always trying to infiltrate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, the never-ending story equals to what? Job opportunities. That means you are still needed. So if you look at everything as positive, well, everybody still have job opportunities. So don't worry, man. We still have jobs. So Grisel, I mean, in terms of sustainability, maybe you can just share with us. Like, I know that Petronas, when they go offshore to drill and look for oil and everything, right? I know that it's as sensitive as drilling the wrong place, and it's going to create a lot of costs, right? So when you analyze all these rocks and everything, all this data that you analyze, right? How do you actually do it? Is it like a special program that you create, or is it actually a third-party program that you actually develop by other Python's programmers to do it?
Yes, basically in our laboratory, we use the data from the microscope thin section. We acquired the data. We describe all the data that came from rocks, actually, that are drilled from core logs, basically around more than 1,000 meters. So we get the data, we get the rocks. We need to do all the thin section description. Those things are traditionally are made by hand. I mean, I don't buy manually. But now we are seeing that there are many things that we can do using Python or using another tools to try to automate all this process. The same thing with the satellite images when we try to recognize different kind of features like fishes, maps, kind of rocks. Even if we are looking not just for resources, but also if we are looking for natural hazards like a landslide or, for example, earthquakes, when we try to get the information in real time, this will be very, very useful. So as we can see in general, what we have done during the last year in our lab is to try to summarize what we are on the way to develop in the following years. That basically, one is the measurement in terms of prediction. What we want is to capture more information than ever. In this case, measure in real time. For example, our field work can be done by drones, so we can get information and even samples from the field using drones. Are also working in what is the predictive maintenance. The second is the information. In terms of information, we have a lot of data, but not all the people have access to the data. So what we want is to make accessible the data, especially in the teams, or if it's in a company or it's in an institution, etc. To make the data accessible for all. In terms of that, we need to clean the data, we need to standardize the data, and the data need to be reliable as well. So that's why we as researchers, we need to QC all this part, all these things. And I think the third that for the future will be more into the part of the precision, more into the part of automation. So as you said, for example, try to automate everything, but we need to QC all the data. I mean, the result, also the input data. And maybe what is we call in general for greater accuracy, in this case, to find better places to drill, in this case, can be oil, can be gas, can be mineral resources, can be, for example, hydrogeology, because we are looking also for water and water exploration. So as you can see, the geoscience is very wide. It's a very wide area what we can explore, but also at the same time we are trying to move into the digital part. And we know that if we use all the data, we will have better results and more accuracy in doing the exploration, and even also during the part of the natural resources, the natural hazards. For example, this can be very useful during the time of earthquakes. If we can observe in real time how many people are affected by a earthquake, for example, how many people need to move from one place to another place, for example, this could be very, very interesting. So this is something what we are working on.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely very well. I mean, it's definitely something that is, I would say, it's mankind of our mankind is in your hand right now, because it's like most of the things that you do currently, Grisel, is what we don't see every day because it's under the sea. It's a different world. Okay. So thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your sharing. And I do see some comments. I just want to read out the comments. It is by Swimming, a famous guy in the Python community. He was saying that good luck starting a new electronics factory. Well, yeah, yeah, definitely Swimming. I don't think we're going to start a new electronic factory, but we definitely need to know that, yeah, it's actually a lot of job opportunity for the Python community. Yeah. And the second one is from Second, issues of excessive requests for personal data, not respectful of people's privacy, even when the registration forms and apps. Well, yeah, true. Sometimes I feel that, they ask more than what they're supposed to ask. But it is actually our rights to actually answer or don't answer as well. But definitely we need to protect ourselves. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Yeah. So with this, I believe we are just on time for the whole entire sharing. And just a very quick round up is that, all of us here we have three beautiful speakers here are very different in their SMEs. One is on the ambulance and on the IoT, how to improve the hospitality and everything. The other one is on the geology, and then the third speaker we have is on environment. But guess what? They have one similarity. The similarity is to build something, to create something for the future mankind. That is who we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to share with you that Dr. Carl is just like Doctor Strange in the Avengers. Ivan is just like Iron Man who create things for the environment. And well, Grisel, you can choose to be Scarlett Johansson. All right. Or it can be any beautiful ladies there. Or maybe the Iron Man, the lady Iron Man, right? So we are all the Avengers. So I guess we're all superheroes, in other words. So with this, I would like to say thank you so much for your time. And Dr. Carl, I look forward for your sharing in the next PyCon. And I know that it's going to be a great successful. I wish three of you great success in your sensors, in your IoT, and even in your studies of rocks. And do the next sharing in the next PyCon. So with this, I would like to hand it back to the technical support for the PyCon. And thank you so much. Thank you very much for being with us to PyCon APAC 2020. Back to you. Thank you very much.
Microsoft is delighted to be at